Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our May 19th All In for Kansas Kids biweekly webinar. As always, we're happy that you're joining us on your noon hour, and we hope that we will be able to share some valuable information that you can take away and use in your work. For our agenda today, we have our regular general updates. Then we will have a little presentation by the Family Conservancy Early Education Job Board, and then also a self-care presentation. And we also want to welcome you to feel free to comment either in the chat or by speaking. We will try to watch for any of you who may want to contribute to our conversations today. So starting with our general updates, we have an opportunity, the Parent Leadership Conference, which many of you might be familiar with or have possibly attended in the past. And of course, this year it will still be available virtually. And it will be workshops, TED Talks, advocacy and action parent stories. And there will also be able to have some exhibitor booths and networking opportunities. And so this will begin July 1. Recorded sessions will be available. And there is an email address here for Pam Noble. If you're interested in presenting, exhibiting, or nominating a parent for the Advocacy and Action Panel, you can please contact Pam. There will be a keynote on the evening of July 27th at 6:30 live, followed by questions and answer session. And then there's going to be some additional keynote on July 28th, as well as a parent cafe on July 29th. Both of those will also be in the evening from 6:30 to 8:30. So be watching for registration materials. We will make those available on all of our platforms as soon as we get them. And if you are a parent interested in attending, or if you work with parents and you can get this information to them, that would be very helpful so that they can take advantage of this. We also have an opportunity for a live virtual training by Tom Copeland. Tom is an author, a trainer, and an advocate for family childcare business. And he will be talking to you about taxes and what you can expect when you file your taxes after COVID-19. Maybe some of you received the PPP grant. You need to learn how that works, possibly what is taxable income, what you can deduct, and then also other information about the small administration loan programs and some Social Security benefits. And so this will be taking place on May 19th and May 27th from 6:30 to 8:30. It will be presented by the Department of Children and Families and also in coordination with CACIDO. And so if you would like to register for this, the link is available. And then there is also a shareable flyer. I'm seeing a comment here saying we had a great response, both sessions are full. So for those of you who were able to get registered for this, it looks like it's going to be a very valuable opportunity. There's also a shareable flyer. I don't know if I mentioned that. So we have another opportunity. So if you are starting in the fall of 2021, if you are a transfer student or you're already enrolled in one of the 2 early childhood programs at Pittsburgh State University, you will be eligible for full scholarships. And so these scholarships are made available. There's $600,000 contribution from the 3 Oklahoma tribes, the Miami, the Ottawa, and the Shawnee tribes. And these are expected to continue through the 22-23 school year. And so to be eligible, a student must apply by June 7th, live in one of the 41 area counties served by the tribes, have already completed 45 credit hours at a higher education institution, including community colleges, and the student does not need to be Native American. So if you are interested, you can apply at this link provided. or you can call Amber Tankersley or the Family and Consumer Sciences Department at Pittsburgh State. And I have to put in a plug as a proud mom of a Pitt State grad. It's a great school to attend, and this is a wonderful opportunity. So go Gorillas, and good luck to anyone who might pursue this. There are also some ASQ trainings coming up for any of you who might need that. So the Ages and Stages questionnaire, so the ASQ3 is a training designed for any professional who has contact with children younger than 66 months of age. And the goal of this training is to help identify developmental delays early that allow children and families to receive services as soon as that delay is recognized. And then the ASQ SE2 training is used to identify children who may be at risk for social or emotional difficulties. And so that training is designed for any professional who has contact with children younger than 72 months of age. And it's also would allow children and families to receive services as soon as that social or emotional difficulty is recognized. So there's some links here that you can go to at the Kansas Department of Education to register for both of these trainings. We want to be able to share the highlights of the Our Tomorrow Story Bank with you. They're always busy there doing activities and projects with people. So this week, the current story count is 2,664. They recently had a PDG subgrantee luncheon and learn, and they collected over 400 stories and had meaningful discussion around data, patterns, and stories. And they also took a deeper look at some recent mental health issues and some stories and patterns that they're seeing there, and including different ways that people are identifying with mental health concerns. So there is a link that Bria provided. As a reminder, we always want and invite people to go to that link and share any stories that you might have.
So we heard, I believe it was either 2 weeks ago or in one of our weekly emails, that the Family Conservancy had created a job board, and we thought that was a really fantastic opportunity to share with all of you. So we're really blessed to have Meg Feeney with us here today. She's an infant toddler specialist with the Family Conservancy network. And she's just going to walk us through so we get to see what this new tool looks like and maybe how it could help you as an employer, a provider, or a job seeker. So Meg, whenever you are ready.
I think you're on mute, Meg. Sorry.
Okay, I've only been doing this for a year and I can't unmute myself. Can you hear me now? Sorry, everybody. Thanks again for having me. The Family Conservancy is really excited about this new job board we've created. Really, for the past few years, we've heard childcare providers telling us that they need help finding employers. They need help finding people to join the field. They struggle to hire new staff. And so we've been thinking about it and taking that into consideration. Now, as the community is recovering from the pandemic, we feel like it's just even more imperative to help people find each other, to help fill these positions for the employer and for the job seeker. So we created this job board. It's only been up for less than a month. So there's still a lot that we're learning about it, but it has also very much taken off. Right now, we have 65 programs who have created a profile with us in order to post jobs on the job board, and there's over 70 active job openings. So there was definitely a need for this, and we really want to do everything we can to get the word out about it to the community. So you see on my screen right now, there is the website you can use to go to the job board. And I'm going to put this back up at the end of my little spiel here so you can write my email address down again if you need it. But let me show you where it is just on the website. If you go to the Family Conservancy's homepage here and click up at the top where it says Early Educators, the very first thing that's going to come up is check out our new job board down here at the bottom. So if I click on it, there it is. This did start as a Kansas City area sort of initiative, but it is not limited to Kansas City. Right now, we're working on the whole metropolitan area, counties surrounding Kansas City, in order to advertise for it. But like I said, we're just getting started. So anyone's able to use it. So right now you can see a great list of all the job openings in the Kansas City metro area. It looks like we've got 3 pages going. And you will notice that some are for positions in childcare centers as teachers, but we also have here a cook is needed. So this is not limited to just teacher positions. This is anything in the early childhood field, any kind of early childhood job. If you look up here at the top, do you want to post a job? You can sign up for a free profile here. If you click there, sorry, it gets confused because I'm an administrator and trying to show this as well. Down here at the bottom, you notice it says you're not a member, you need to register, and you can click register there to create your profile. So it just asks you for a name, your company information, etc. There's a spot right here in the middle that says you can drop your company logo if you'd like, give us a brief description of your company, etc. And then you just click register to create your profile. Then on our end, we will just go over that, make sure that it's not anyone outside of the early childhood field, and we will activate your account. So when you first register for a profile, you'll get an email from the ECE job board admin that says, thank you, here's your username and password. We'll get right back to you once we approve that. Then you'll get a second email saying, okay, we wanted to let you know you've been approved, you can log in. This is the direct link to the job board. And we're also giving everyone brief instructions about how to post a job. I'll come back to that in a minute. So then when you are logged in, let me see if it'll let me do this here. Okay. So you want to log in with the information that was just in that email. And it's going to bring you kind of to an administrative page with a few action options. You can post a job right here. You can see all of your listings that you have posted. You can edit your profile. This is a spot to receive applications. Right now, we're not doing that on the website. We wanted to create a space for people to find each other. We're not taking the applications or getting into any of that part. So let's say you want to post a job. Click here, it's going to bring up a page. This is very easy. You do have to fill out all of the fields that have the yellow asterisks there. But really, it's just basic information about the job, the title, a description. The instructions that I showed you that were in that email, they even give you suggestions on what kind of description you want to have, but really it's up to you. Any desired education, experience, salary. There's a drop-down box here. Is it full-time, part-time, internship? What kind of job is it? Teacher, support, etc. You can click all of that. Fill everything out that you would like, including your address. One little tricky piece is down here at the bottom. You do have to click that this is a free listing. Everything is free, and hopefully it will continue that way. I know it will for a very long time, but right now you have to click that this is a free option, and then you hit preview. It'll bring up your job description, what it will look like on the website, and then there's a button to hit publish, and that's it. That's all you do, and your job will show up on the job board. Up here at the top where it says employer administration, that's kind of like your homepage to your dashboard for the jobs that you've created. So you can always come back to this page to post another job, to look at your listing, to see any of your history. I'm going to click on listings here. When you have jobs posted, they're going to fall into these 4 categories. When it's just active on the website, of course, it'll be under the active spot. Your job openings will stay posted for 30 days. After that 30 days, it's going to move over to this expired column. But it's nice that it stays there. You have a record of it, because if you pull up that expired job posting, you can make edits to what you've typed in, and then you can hit repost and get it back on the job board for another 30 days if you'd like. Let's say after 10 days, the position is filled, you can go to your active listings, click on your job, and stop posting it so that you stop getting phone calls or emails. Just a quick reminder there is that it is active for 30 days, and you'll get an email reminding you when your posting is expiring. So you will want to keep on top of that. Let's see. Does anyone have any questions quickly? I'm kind of going fast through this. Feel free to interrupt me. I'm just going to click on one of these job openings and show you what it looks like. So here's an example of someone's job posting, the kind of description that they wrote. This is a really good one. Some of them are long, some of them have been short, but lots of information there. You can put in a website if you want to direct people to your own application process on your website. You can just type in the link and it will become a hyperlink once you post it, that they can go directly to your website to do that. Let's see, what questions do you guys have? When people are searching for jobs, you can see here they can type in a keyword, they can look for full-time, they can kind of filter the results that they want. I say this is like, Craigslist. Your post moves down to the bottom of the list. So if you don't republish it, it'll just keep moving down. You can republish your listing after 10 days if you'd like to bump it back up to the top of the list. But that is how it works. The most recent job openings are at the top of the page. So really what we need to do now are find people that are looking for jobs. So getting the word out. Of course, we still want to help those that have openings and help them advertise their job listings. But to think that we have over 70 active listings right now, we really want to make a push to get this to people who are looking for jobs. And we have already started that process, and there's been lots of brainstorming. We're reaching out to community partners, colleges, newspapers, media, lots of different avenues, but really that's where we're at right now, pushing this to people who are looking for jobs.
This is really incredible, Meg.
Thank you.
It's like if I were a provider, like this would be, especially the fact that it's free, wouldn't have to, it looks very user-friendly. So just let us know if there's any changes that come about with the functionality or registration, anything like that. Just keep us updated and we'll make sure that we keep the flow of information going to our stakeholders.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you guys so much for all your support.
Thank you for making time for us.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to email me.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears now. And I'm, like I said to Meg, I'm super appreciative because I reached out to her and just right away she was like, yeah, absolutely. I can make time and come on and do that. And we really love that because we know that recruitment and retention is a very difficult piece of the early childhood infrastructure. And so just to see something that's so pretty. It's a really pretty tool, very aesthetically pleasing. Looks like it's very easy to use and, usable by people across the state, not just one region, is fantastic. So our main presentation for today is actually going to be about self-care. When Bria and Debbie and I were talking a few months ago, trying to kind of plan out our content for the next few webinars, we decided that we've been in this pandemic for quite some time. For a lot of people, your day-to-day changes once summer hits, that schedule changes, your responsibilities change. And so we thought that this was a really great place to try and give you something back, maybe a couple of tools where you can breathe, reset, and prepare yourself for whatever this time of year is going to look like for you. So today we have Michael Lemon and Danielle Brower from KU-CPPR, and they're going to be talking to us about self-care. And I would recommend that you don't ask Michael about his experience in the float tub, because that might traumatize you from indulging in self-care. But take it away, guys.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Lemon, and my co-host with me, I don't know if I see her yet.
I'm here, Michael. I'm in the
Hi,
square.
Yeah. Hi, Danielle Brower. It's great to be here. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about self-care. This is a topic that we use quite a bit in some of the adverse childhood experiences research that we do at the center. So this is sort of near and dear to my heart. And I think that there's some tools and some strategies that I can share that might be helpful, especially like you were saying, like in the context of the pandemic and just sort of the transition and coming back. I think it's really important to stop and reflect right now. So self-care, why it's so important to care. If you want to go, thank you. So needs, so tuning in and tuning out, this idea of tuning in, right? So when we focus on things too much, it's hard to sometimes come out. So if you've ever been working late and you need to stop working, so you need to tune out. So tuning in and tuning out and becoming aware of that is sort of this theme for this area. Self-care is different for each person. And I have a friend that does not understand what it means to meditate and cannot do it. And I don't know if you have one of those friends or if you are one of those friends that says, I cannot meditate. I don't know how to do this. It doesn't make sense to me. The beauty of meditation is that whatever you're doing is your form of meditation, right? It's yours. It's like a signature to you. So even if it doesn't feel like you're doing it right, there's no right way or wrong way to meditate. The idea that you're actually stopping and becoming aware of your breathing, that you're thinking clear thoughts, that you're clearing your mind. A lot of people start meditation by writing down, like on a Post-it note, all the things that are looming that they think that they're going to forget if they don't do something with them. So sometimes just to clear your mind, a form of meditation might be to write everything down and then go on a walk and sit at a park or just sit outside in nature. That could be your form of meditation. Some people really get into a very formal type of meditation where they'll sit and for a long period of time, really focus their breathing for sometimes an hour or more, depending on how much practice they've had with it. That does not have to be your role, and that may not be part of your lifestyle, and that's okay. The attempt is noted, the attempt is necessary, and so keep trying. I think that's part of it. Whatever this looks like for you, it will be different, but keep trying. The consistent awareness, this is the part where we all fail as humans. We get going, we move fast, we forget to stop and smell the roses. And this idea of consistent awareness is hard. So if you don't have somebody actually reminding you, or you don't wear a bracelet that's telling you, I need to do this, or if you're not pinching yourself every once in a while or putting a reminder on your calendar, it's easy to forget. So I think that my challenge around this area for everyone is, how do you remember? How do you stop yourself and allow yourself to remember to do something around self-care? Some people calendarize it. They'll put it on their calendar. They'll just put like a little note at the top of their calendar for each day, or on Friday. And it's just that little reminder that gets them going, gets them thinking. What do you do to remind yourself to practice self-care? If you have a moment, just type in the chat, what do you do to remind yourself to practice self-care? Walk. Text reminder. Somebody said I set timers on my phone. I'll take walks. I'll use my Google Calendar. Great. Amy says that she has an app that lets her focus on work for 25 minutes and gives her a 5-minute break. That's nice. I know some folks that are using electronic, like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch that will buzz to remind you to move, right? So if you've been sitting sedentary for too long, it will actually buzz and say, hey, you've been sitting for more than 20 minutes. It might be time to get up and do something different for just a little bit. Some people correlate that buzz with also meditation, doing something for themselves. If it's getting a glass of water, getting something to eat, nourishing your body, whatever that looks like for you. Self-care doesn't have to be this sophisticated pathway. It can be a very basic meeting your needs process. And I think a lot of times, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, people make a lot of assumptions about what self-care is and what it isn't. And so we'll kind of break some of those assumptions in just a bit. So when you do this, when you practice these things, you reduce stress. Your breathing is clear. You're thinking differently. You're shifting gears. People around you like you better. Your family likes to be around you. They don't get frustrated with you. You don't get frustrated with them. You're also modeling. And I think that there are a lot of young people around us that are watching our every move, watching how we behave. And this is a chance for them to see and model that behavior. So if you're stopping and saying, hey, I need to take a break, it's also a great idea for them to learn to take that break with you, right? So you practice that with them. And then improved health. We're going to talk a little bit about the adverse childhood experiences research study in just a bit. But what we do know is that, heart disease and cancers and strokes are all connected to our ability to reduce stress. Some people genetically are going to have these diseases, but they don't have to be terminal right away. There are opportunities to actually mitigate. And so taking time to reduce the stress and improve your health, this is an outcome of actually practicing and being aware of this. If you don't do this, a lot of times people end up with high blood pressure. They end up with heart disease. They end up with cancer. Cortisol runs through our blood, and cortisol is a chemical that is used primarily for a fight or flight response, right? So if cortisol is running through your body for too long and too fast, your organs actually become paralyzed. They don't function the way they were meant to. They're not supposed to, or by design, we're not supposed to have cortisol running through them as often as they do. So when you get stressed out, remember, you get one body, you have this one life, right? So use it wisely and be mindful of when you're using that chemical cortisol, how can you can turn it on and turn it off. It's up to you. You have that control. And then increase productivity, which is great when you're talking about your job. And your professional self-care is one component of life. It's actually probably a pretty big one. The iceberg I'll show you in just a moment sort of indicates that it might be a 20%, but we spend so much time working. We spend so much time at our jobs and in our careers. It's really hard not to connect those dots to self-care, right? And so how do you find strategies and pathways to practice self-care even while you're working?
Michael, I would also add to the idea around consistent awareness around self-care. Like a lot of times I think we think about forward thinking with self-care. How are we going to plan that into our day? How are we going to plan it into our week or our lives? But I think in kind of a reflective or mindfulness practice with awareness is pausing and thinking about in what ways did I support my self-care this week? And even if there are small things like, I did drink 4 glasses of water yesterday, and normally I drink 4 glasses of coffee. Like pausing and thinking about the things that you've done for yourself in the past week or the past couple of weeks can be, I think, a really helpful pause and celebration of the small things that we do to move ourselves forward. And so just kind of thinking about tuning in and tuning out, also thinking about it's not about just setting goals, but also a practice of mindfulness and looking back.
No, I really appreciate that. I think what you're sort of identifying is those micro steps that we take that we don't give ourselves credit for. It's easy to jump from A to Z and not actually remember that B, C, D all happened and you contributed to that you are part of that journey. Okay. So there are different types of self-care, and this is actually not the entire list. This is just one that I felt like we could probably talk about on a call like this today that most folks would connect to. There's the emotional self-care, being able to connect with other humans. This has been a tough one the last year. Being able to connect in person hasn't happened. People are missing out hugs. That's a really hard one because that's when oxytocin is released in our bloodstreams when we hug people, and that's how we actually create and know that we have connection. And I think that it's been difficult when you don't have that. So then slowly over time, relationships deteriorate, and they didn't not intentionally, not on purpose, but they do sometimes. And so how did you work to maintain connection even if it couldn't be physical? You couldn't have that hug. The physical piece is connected to the emotional piece, right? These are all intertwined. But I think right now, all of these, the physical, the social, and the spiritual, I felt like these were the four that everyone had to connect to or rely on in some way, and in maybe a different way than they did pre-COVID this past year. So just out of curiosity, there's always the negative part of COVID, right? We talk about like how hard things have been. There's also some good things that come out of things that are negative, right? And I'm not trying to silver lining everything, as Brene Brown would say, but I would say that we probably all learned something about ourselves over this past year, and things that maybe we didn't even know that we needed to know about ourselves. So if there was something that was life-changing for you, or that you reframed and realized, I don't need that anymore, I don't want that anymore in my life. If this past year gave you that opportunity to let something go, that's a gift in and of itself. So if you were to look at these four areas, is there one that you feel like you really honed in on over this past year that changed you? Maybe you became more spiritual, maybe you became more religious, maybe you found that you were an introvert and you got to actually connect way more than you had in the past, not being in person. So were there any changes that were positive over this past year, and did your self-care go up because of the COVID pandemic? Would you put that in the chat? Any reframes? How did you make lemonade out of lemons of the past year? And maybe you haven't really thought about that yet. And maybe that hasn't come to you yet, and it will later. And maybe for some people it has. Linda says she started meditation. Great. Got several coming in here. So Bree says, spent more time with my immediate family. Mandy says, my husband and I go on walks almost daily since date nights were not something we could go on and do. Stephanie says, working remotely, I did lose the ability to decompress after work during my commute. Yes, there was a big loss around the commutes for a lot of folks. But without my commute, I had more time with my family. Maybe just less transition time, right? We had more transition time. That was a major shift for a lot of folks. I took up Zoom yoga and with my bestie in California. That's awesome. Rich says, I move more seamlessly between work and play. It's great. Rebecca said that she worked harder to connect with team members, spoke out more about what I was doing. Okay. We'll keep those coming in, and we'll keep revisiting the chat. We can move to the next slide. So this is the SelfCare Iceberg, and there are several versions of this out there, but the idea I think is the same. So in any iceberg that you see in the water, you see the tip of the iceberg, right? That's all that's actually visual for you with the human eye. You can see that piece, and so that's what metaphorically everyone sees about you. These are the things that everyone that's visible about you, and then underneath the water, the iceberg's huge, right? There's a whole lot more to that iceberg that you can't see. And so in this particular scenario, what we think self-care looks like is what we see. And so there's a few examples on here on the top that say exercise, bubble baths, skin care, spa days, massages. There's probably a dozen things that you may think about when you think of self-care. So if you have thought of those things, there's probably other ones like pedicures, manicures. There's all kinds of things that people do, and they probably correlate those with self-care, and it's wonderful self-care. It really is. But what it looks like behind the scenes is a little harder, and sometimes you have to go deeper to really get to it. So if you notice at the bottom of this iceberg, there's trauma healing, there's purging negativity, inner child healing. These are deep dives, sort of, maybe getting a therapist if you need one, or making sure that you have a consistent friend or, a buddy system that you're talking to people about, because some of these things came out in the last year and a half during the pandemic that maybe people didn't expect, or think about that with your own family. Crying, feeling emotions, actually feeling emotions. For some people, that can be very difficult. Setting boundaries, getting proper rest, letting go of attachments, the idea of meditation, learning from triggers, right? So maybe you got rid of a set of triggers that you had in person with colleagues and other people, and then you got a new set because then you're near and dear to family, and you didn't realize that your partner was that person at work who talks like that, and you're learning a lot. You learn more about the people that you love so closely. Difficult conversations, and then nourishing your body. So if there are other things on the bottom part of that iceberg that you think of, put those in the chat. What else is often missing that people may not see, or it's behind the scenes? Dana says learning to listen to your body. Yep. Stephanie says time and space to do nothing. Tamara says taking walks. Yeah. So keep thinking about that that bottom part of the iceberg, what's below the water. So Rebecca says our team got good at communicating online, and now that we are back together in office, we have to learn to visit face to face again. Right? It's brutal. It's almost like the relationship currency that had been built up. The endowment that we all had. It's not that it was spent, but it was taxed, right? And then we come back and we're not all the same. Nobody's going to come back and be the same person they were before the pandemic started. So I think that there's going to be some reconciliation and some storming and norming and getting to know each other again. And that's okay. Give yourself permission to be okay with that.
Yeah, Michael, what I also love about Rebecca's comment is around communication, like that there is this kind of thread. And I'd say there's difficult conversations on the bottom part of the iceberg, which I also love, because I think the idea of self-care being kind of those things at the top, which are like this positive reflection of doing something, that like these pieces at the bottom can be really challenging, but for the long run be good for your long-term health. And so I think communication on that bottom half, whether it's positive or challenging communication, is so important to well-being for people. And so I really appreciate, Rebecca, your comment and calling that out.
Yeah. And Debbie just said that her watch reminded her, so that was perfect timing. I promise there's no paid promotions here for any of those electronic devices. That just happened. All right. And then Mary says meditating. Okay. So keep thinking about this. Some of you mentioned that you liked the self-care iceberg. I think it's a really, really basic, simple metaphor for how we might think about our lives and how we see ourselves and how others might see us. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So how do you practice self-care? And when I ask you this, it's not that you have to have that answer right now. I wanted to pose it formally because I think that there are people that I've worked with in the past who said, I don't know that I do. And that's okay. Awareness to that is the first step. Just knowing that maybe you don't actually have an intentional plan for self-care is the first step. And then my recommendation would be to do some searching on it. Look up self-care, what it could look like, what it could mean. And then if you have a friend that you feel like you can confide in, it's a great way to build an accountability partner system and make it really simple and basic. But having somebody else to talk to about it, I think is really, really valuable. Okay. So when you do practice self-care, and I think that people maybe who do this can talk about this, you know, what is better about your life when you are practicing self-care, and even people that maybe aren't doing this consistently now, they know what probably is better or can see it in other people. And so if you could just put in the chat, like, what's better when you do practice self-care? What's better in your life? What's better about your health? Like, what is it that's better, or you notice that you would really, really want to highlight and remind yourself, this is why I'm doing this? Dana says, I sleep better. Linda says, more energy. Hannah, I'm a better mom. Yeah. Relationships are better, more regulated. Mary says that she's more relaxed. Rich says, I'm closing the gap between what I would like to do and what I'm actually doing. That is very, very thoughtful. Okay. All right, we can go with one more question for you. What happens when you don't? And it may not be just for yourself, but what do you notice in other people when they don't? What happens? What kinds of behaviors come out? What do you notice? How are you affected? Maybe you do practice really, really great self-care, but maybe you have some people around you who don't, and they have a negative impact on you. How do you manage that? I get grumpy and I'm not so pleasant to be around. Thank you, Dana. I appreciate the honesty. Rich says the gap between what people feel they should do and what they are actually doing is invisible. That is very, very rich. Wow. Do you find yourself having to manage other people, or contorting, being able to mold to other people because they're not necessarily able to see that about themselves? And if so, what does it look like for you to set a boundary, or to say like, hey, maybe you should take a day off, or maybe, like, how do you do that? How do you approach someone that you care about, that you are working with, that affects you, that needs this? What are ways that you have been able to approach, or maybe you don't? Maybe it's too much, or maybe it's not something that you've ever done before. But think about that. We care about the people we work with. We care about the people that we love in our families, and we want them to be better. And sometimes they don't know what they don't know, because we don't sometimes know what we don't know about ourselves. Okay, we can go to our next slide. So I'm just going to give you a real quick overview of adverse childhood experiences research. Most of you probably have heard of this before, but if you haven't, there was a groundbreaking study that the CDC and Kaiser Permanente did between 1995 and 1997. And it was a longitudinal study. It's the longest study that has ever been done. And what it essentially, what it showed was like through a 10-item questionnaire, there were 10 items total that they would ask adults. So these are questions that you have to post retrospectively, think about your childhood around. So these are things that happened to you between 0 and 18. The answers to those questions, if you answered yes to at least 3 of those, you were at an increased risk for negative health outcomes in adulthood. And it goes up exponentially based on the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and we know this research is very solid, and it's hard sometimes when we know it happens. We know this is true, and we want to prevent this, right? We want to prevent this from happening, but once it's happened, you have to manage it, right? And so as adults, we try not to, maybe redo what was already done to us. So we have a chance to change things for the young people that we're around or our own children. And this is that chance to do that. But awareness is half the battle. So knowing about this questionnaire, if you've never taken it, you can go to the CDC's website, and there's a link to it. There's several different versions of it, but you can find the basic questionnaire and answer those questions. And if you are interested in more, there's a lot of information out there on it. But this is, again, what happened to you between 0 and 18. So even when you were in the womb, this is there's epigenetics research that's happening that your grandmother's trauma has by chance affected you. And there's just a lot more to the cortisol studies and to why we behave the way we behave. So there's more out there. Most of you maybe have heard of the behavioral risk factor surveillance system, this BRFIS data. This is where this is connected to. So if you are doing any data analysis or research, this is a great opportunity to connect this dot to this research. These are those 10 questions I mentioned. These are the areas. So they're categorized as abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. So obviously the first in abuse is physical, and then there's emotional, and then sexual. And then under neglect, there's physical and emotional. And then the household dysfunction, mental illness, incarcerated relative, mother treated violently, substance abuse, and then divorce. So coming into the last 15, 12 minutes or so of our time together, I shared a lot of things to think about, gave you a lot to consider. If you were to do one thing, and I mean this wholeheartedly, if you were to do one thing differently through the rest of this week and make it very simple, it's one action. If you take one step toward becoming more aware of your self-care patterns, your lack of self-care patterns, a plan for it, what would that be? If you could just take a quick moment, think about it, and just put that in the chat. Just one simple thing that you think you can do this week that you could achieve and get done, that's going to increase your awareness of self-care and probably improve your mood and make you feel better. You could be drinking four cups of water. Maybe not, maybe you don't do 8, maybe it's hard to do it, but you do 4. No electronics before bed to help us sleep, great. Baby steps, drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. Anna says, I'm using my mindfulness app 3 times. Finish a task before I start another, okay? It might even be as simple as calling a friend, maybe somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. There's a lot of people that maybe we haven't had in our orbit as closely. It could be reaching out to somebody that you've disconnected with. Take walk breaks more, yes. I was talking to a colleague about the idea of making sure that there are still phone numbers on meeting requests. We moved to a culture that is, predominantly video now for meetings. And so the idea that you would still be able to go on a walk and talk on the phone outside, and just move. that doesn't have to go away, but the challenge is that you have to set yourself up for success. So making sure that maybe there's phone numbers still that are part of the meeting requests so that you can make that choice if you need to. All right, Danielle, is there anything else you'd like to add?
We do have one question in the chat, Michael,
Okay.
that says, what website do we find that on? And I believe it was when you were discussing the ACE.
Yep, I'm going to put this in the chat. I had this queued up. 1 second here. There you go. All right. So if you enjoyed today and it was helpful and you learned something, put a 1 in the chat. Okay. Okay, several 1s. This is great. So now, if you have learned something today that you might use for yourself, but you might also extend to a friend or somebody else that you care about as a strategy or a tool, put a 2. So if I were to give you 4 or 5 minutes back to your day, you could activate on those 1s and 2s probably pretty quickly. And I hope that you are able to do that. And I don't know if you have more to do on this call, but if you don't, I do challenge you, and I hope that you will take a moment for yourself and take a moment to care about others. Kindness is still real. We still need it. And everyone is dealing with something right now, and be patient and kind. Thank you all for your time today.
Thank you so much, Michael and Danielle. This is like my bread and butter. We were talking about this the other day. I love this stuff as a psych person. I know sometimes it's uncomfortable for people. Sometimes it's kind of a foreign subject, but you guys just did a really great, relatable way of presenting this information. And we appreciate you being here. So thank you. One last thing we wanted to throw in there for everybody on the self-care lane. There's a really cool blog post that was put out there from the Health Forward. I'm forgetting the full name of it now. The Health Forward Foundation. There it is, right in front of my face. This Dr. Nancy Osborne, she wrote a specific blog post, and it was essentially talking about addressing self-care from a community stance and how much more powerful it becomes if you look at it from the lens of an entire community. So we've included the link to that actual blog post. There's other really great resources on the Health Forward Foundation's website, including other blog posts, information about pandemic-related things, information about trauma-informed care. So just another resource for you to check out if you're a reader and that's a good way for you to absorb new information.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our webinar today. We always end with some reminders and next steps. We do have our early childhood recommendations panel meeting this Friday. So that's from 9 to 11:30. And you can join that via YouTube. Next bi-weekly webinar, we'll see in a couple of weeks, is Wednesday, June 2nd. And please always contact us and let us know if you're interested or have topics that you can share that on our webinars or in our weekly emails. Our cabinet and stakeholder group meeting is June 4th, which is a Friday. The cabinet meeting is in the morning from 9 to noon. And then the stakeholder group meeting is in the afternoon from 1 to 3:30. And you are always welcome to share feedback on our link at the Children's Cabinet website. Just anything that you have that you think would be meaningful to us, we would love to hear from you. And so that ends our meeting. To stay in sync with our self-care theme today, I would like to, first of all, we've all been sitting for an hour, and I'm glad that you've stayed with us till the end. So it's time to get up and move as soon as we're done here today, whether that's eating lunch, taking a walk, or whatever it might mean to you. So thank you to Michael and Danielle for giving us all of those great tips and reminding us how important that is. And I'm really excited to hear that self-care has been brought to the forefront, because I think many of us for many years have forgotten about doing that enough. So today I'm going to end with a quote from Lucille Ball. Love yourself first and everything else falls in line. You really have to love yourself to get anything else done in this world. So go out there and love yourself today. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out with us at noon, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye, everybody.